Hello everyone, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, daily newspaper analysis. Today we have some important news articles for the discussion, and in this session we will discuss all those important news articles one by one. And before discussing all those articles, let's try to solve yesterday given practice question. This question we have already discussed. If you are regularly following our classes, you can answer this question without any doubt. So the question is, which of the following countries are not the members of both BIMSTEC and SAARC groupings? Right? So if you look at both BIMSTEC and SAARC, they are regional organizations. They are regional organizations in which India is a one member country. So therefore, we need to identify the members of both BIMSTEC and SAARC, and then we'll try to answer this. And you can see on the left side, these are all SAARC member countries. There are 8 countries which are members of SAARC grouping. So there are total 8 countries. So Afghanistan is part of SAARC, Bhutan, Maldives, Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, Nepal and Sri Lanka. So all these countries are part of the SAARC grouping, and total 8 countries are part of the SAARC organization. But on the other hand, if you look at the BIMSTEC, so in the BIMSTEC, 7 member countries are part of it, right? So Sri Lanka, Thailand, Myanmar, Bangladesh, India, Nepal and Bhutan. So these are the 7 member countries which are part of the BIMSTEC organization. You just remember what are the member countries of the BIMSTEC and what are the member countries of SAARC regional organizations, right? So now we'll try to answer this question. So which of the following countries are not members of both BIMSTEC and SAARC? Now, one thing that we need to understand, Myanmar and Thailand are not members of the SAARC grouping, rather they are members of the BIMSTEC, Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation member, but it is not a SAARC member. And on the other hand, when we talk about Bhutan, so Bhutan is a member of both BIMSTEC and SAARC grouping as well, right? So you can clearly see that Bhutan is a member country of SAARC organization and even Bhutan as well, and BIMSTEC as well. So therefore this is incorrect. And then Maldives, and again one thing that we must understand here, Maldives is a member country of the SAARC, but it is not the member country of BIMSTEC organization. But on the other hand, Sri Lanka is a member country of both BIMSTEC and SAARC. So therefore the correct answer for this question 1 and 3, right? Myanmar is a member country of BIMSTEC but not SAARC, and Maldives is a member country of SAARC but not BIMSTEC. But on the other hand, Bhutan and Sri Lanka are member countries of both BIMSTEC and SAARC, and therefore the correct answer for this question is option B, right? So I hope you have understood, and apart from these countries that we have discussed as part of the answer, you should also remember the remaining countries which are part of BIMSTEC and SAARC regional groupings. And today also we have another very interesting and very important prelims practice question. The question is with respect to the tuberculosis. In our previous lectures, we have very often discussed about the disease of tuberculosis. And if you remember those lectures about the tuberculosis, you can answer this question. The options are, with respect to, consider the following statements with respect to the tuberculosis, and the option statements are: tuberculosis is a bacterial disease. It is caused by the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Second statement says that not all people who became infected with the tuberculosis will develop symptoms. This is the second statement. And third statement, the disease affects only the lungs and not the other parts of the body. So this is the third statement, and here the directive word is which of the above mentioned statements with respect to tuberculosis are correct. So you have to choose the correct answer and try to answer this question. This is also a simple question, so you can answer this question in the comment section. And from today onwards, we have also started a new initiative that we will be discussing about one mains question every day, which is in news, right? So in recent times, strategic autonomy as a foreign policy strategy India has been following, right? So the strategic autonomy as a foreign policy doctrine India has been following since the times of non-alignment movement, and in fact this strategic autonomy has actually served India's national interest well. However, due to India's close ties with Russia, many Western leaders have been criticizing India's policy of strategic autonomy. However, so today I have given one question. So with respect to the strategic autonomy, the question is India's policy of strategic autonomy during Russia-Ukraine war. Despite being criticized by the West, it serves India's key national interests in a multipolar world order. Discuss. So this is the question that I have given to you, and this is very important from the perspective of general studies paper 2 and international relations section in the general studies paper 2. So strategic autonomy is very important. So I have also given the approach of this particular question. The approach is that first define strategic autonomy in the introduction, and in the body part briefly write criticism of India's strategic autonomy by the West, and then write how strategic autonomy as a foreign policy served India's interests well, and then you briefly write some challenges in the implementation of India's policy of strategic autonomy, and then conclude the answer by writing a way forward and try to attempt this answer. Okay, so try to write answer for this particular question, and in tomorrow's session we will discuss the answer for this particular question. Since I have given approach for this question, you try to write answer for this question, right? So now we'll proceed on to the discussion part. So the first a very important article that we are going to discuss in this session is with respect to insurance, and this is a special type of non-traditional and unconventional insurance, that is a parametric insurance, right? So when I say parametric insurance, so this is also an insurance, but it is a non-traditional and unconventional insurance policy, right? So first and foremost, we try to understand what exactly is this parametric insurance policy, right? So in any insurance agreement, there is insured individual, right? So insured individual A and insurer and insurance. Now in conventional insurance methods, what happens? So any person who is insured against any event, the claim of that particular insurance would be settled by the insurer based on the number of assessments, right? So based on the damage, and after conducting a thorough assessment, the insurer would provide the insurance claim to the insured individual. But with respect to the parametric insurance, whenever any disaster took place, for example an earthquake took place, any person is insured his house against an earthquake, right? So based on the intensity of that particular earthquake, the insurer would provide the insurance claim. Rather than the damage that is being caused to his particular house, the insurer would provide insurance based on the intensity or magnitude of that earthquake with respect to any other disaster or any other event. So they just assess the intensity of that particular event, that disaster, and accordingly insurance claim would be provided to the insured individual. And in fact this parametric insurance is a very important, and it has also been gaining a lot of prominence, particularly in the context of climate change and climate change driven disasters that have been creating havoc across the world. So therefore, in this context, we will discuss about this parametric insurance and how India could actually benefit from this parametric insurance. The context is that there are a lot of discussions which have been focused on enhancing the disaster resilience. So why disaster resilience? Because climate change has been resulting in a number of disasters. So therefore, it is very important that we need to create a disaster resilience in the face of increasing natural disasters, and there is also a substantial gap in the insurance coverage. Not all people who are living in the vulnerable regions across the world are covered with the insurance. So therefore, there is also a substantial gap in the insurance coverage, and apart from that, the natural disasters, their intensity and frequency has also been significantly increasing. And when we talk about the insurance coverage gap, so this gap is particularly between the developed and developing economies. Now when we talk about the insurance coverage in developed countries, it is bit higher. More number of people are covered with the insurance, but on the other hand, in developing countries like South Asia and Pacific Island nations, Africa and Latin America, a very less number of people are covered with the insurance. So therefore, these discussions have been centered around these things, and in fact there is a need for alternative insurance methods, and one such alternative insurance method is parametric insurance method. And in fact, it has gained a lot of attention because it could address the challenges that will be created by the climate change in the future. Now we will understand briefly what are the challenges in traditional insurance methods. There are certain challenges in the traditional insurance methods, so we will try to understand that challenges. So firstly, there are a lot of limitations of indemnity based insurance or a traditional or conventional insurance methods. So there are a lot of shortcomings, a lot of limitations. Now when we talk about the limitations, the traditional insurance methods very often relies on the physical assessment. For example, imagine that a person A is insured and person B is the insurer. So in case if any damage takes place to the property of insured individual A, the insurer would physically assess the damage that is being caused to the property of insured person A and accordingly decides the policy claim. So therefore, the traditional insurance very often heavily relies on the physical assessment of the damage for the payout eligibility. And in fact, this verification becomes very difficult whenever there are a widespread disasters like earthquakes takes place or cyclones takes place or floods takes place. So in that particular scenario, the physical verification become a very difficult, and the policy settlement or the claim settlement would be further delayed. So therefore, it would affect the economically disadvantaged communities further, even if they are covered with the insurance. And after that, we should also understand the growing gap in the insurance coverage. So when we talk about the insurance coverage gap, so we have already discussed that this gap is between the developed countries and the developing countries. In the developed countries, more number of people are covered with the insurance, but on the other hand, in the developing countries, a less number of people are covered with the insurance. So if we look into the data with respect to the insurance coverage of the property, now in 2023, global natural disaster losses amounted to $280. Right? So the total disaster related losses across the world amounted to $280 billion. However, only $100 billion of $280 billion was insured. So therefore, it has also been stressing on the fact that the property should be insured against the increasing disaster intensity and frequency. So therefore the vulnerable communities can be protected from the negative impacts or disasters that are created by the climate change. And in fact, the developing economies have been facing wider gaps with respect to insurance coverage compared to the several developed countries, and there is a need to minimize this particular gap. So there is a need for minimizing the insurance gap, and at the same time the limitations in the traditional insurance policies or traditional insurance methods, it calls for an alternative insurance approaches. So there is a need for the alternative insurance approaches, and one such alternative insurance approach is parametric insurance approach. And in fact, this parametric insurance approach has been gaining a lot of prominence, a lot of importance in recent times, because this parametric insurance actually, it can trigger the real time payouts. Okay, so it can pay the insured individual at a real time without any further delays, and there is no need for any physical assessment also in the parametric insurance method. And in fact, the parametric insurance products offer payments based on the predefined weather parameters such as rainfall, wind speed, and flood intensity, and the frequency of the cyclones. So therefore it could bypass the physical damage verification, thereby we can successfully overcome the challenge in the conventional insurance methods. So however, we need to talk about the adoption and implementation of this parametric insurance method. So we have discussed that this parametric insurance method has been emerging as an alternative. So therefore, how can we adopt? And once we adopt, it is also important to implement this parametric insurance method. So first we will look into the global adoption trends of this parametric insurance approach. And in fact, there are a lot of countries around the world which are disaster prone, and they are also becoming increasingly vulnerable to the various disasters, particularly the low-lying island nations in the Pacific and Indian Ocean. And these nations now increasingly looking at the parametric insurance methods and parametric insurance approach for their climate adaptation. And in fact, in these vulnerable and countries which are prone to disasters, the parametric insurance methods have been increasing the trust between the states and the insurers over a period of time, and this has been further leading to the benefiting the vulnerable sections of the society which are already insured by this parametric insurance. And it also resulted in lack of physical assessment and also easy and quick payouts based on the intensity of one particular disaster. So there is an increasing global adaptation of this parametric insurance. So however, when we talk about the examples of this parametric insurance method, recently Morocco secured $275 million in parametric insurance cover post a 6.8 magnitude earthquake. So Morocco has faced recently 6.8 magnitude earthquake, and since Morocco has covered with this parametric insurance coverage, so Morocco has received $275 million insurance claim under this parametric insurance, right? So there is no physical assessment, rather, since based on the intensity of that particular disaster, the claim would be settled at a much faster pace under this parametric insurance method, right? So in fact, it is also important to expand this parametric insurance beyond the high impact disasters. Now when we talk about the high impact disasters, this earthquake can be considered as a high impact disaster, and cyclones can also be considered as a high impact disaster. Now apart from earthquake and cyclones, it is also important that these parametric insurance should also cover the low impact but high intensity, high frequency disasters such as heavy rainfall and heat wave like conditions, those conditions should also be covered under the parametric insurance ambit. So therefore more and more people could be benefited from the parametric insurance methods. So if you want a clear and a detailed definition of parametric insurance, you can go through this particular definition and you can understand what is this parametric insurance, as I have already explained about this. Now, what are the strategies that are required for effective parametric insurance, right? So there is a need for different strategies that have to be adopted for effective parametric insurance use. Now, first and foremost, we need to consider the key factors for the governments in the adoption of this parametric insurance. For example, Morocco has got the claim under this parametric insurance, so therefore Morocco can share its experiences with other vulnerable and other disaster prone countries. So therefore experience sharing among these member countries, among these governments, will actually help in improving the product efficiency, and also transparency in pricing would also substantially improved. So therefore experience sharing is very, very important and effective strategy for the parametric insurance usage. And apart from that, we should not forget the role of multilateral institutions that effectively play in increasing the insurance coverage under the parametric insurance. Because when any country has been getting the support of these multilateral organizations, so then there will be a regional pooling of different risks, because the climate driven risks or disasters not just confined to one single country, rather it impacts the entire region once any disaster triggers. So therefore the multilateral support would enhances regional pooling of risks, and it would also substantially strengthen the bargaining power with the insurers. So it is also important that these countries must bargain with the insurers for the appropriate settlement, for the appropriate agreement between the insured and insurer. And in fact, without a doubt, we can say that the South Asia is one of the most vulnerable, and it is also a disaster prone region. So South Asia could actually benefit from this collaborative risk pooling and even negotiating strategies with the support of multilateral organizations, right? So all countries which are risk prone, disaster prone, which are vulnerable, can actually pool the regions, right? So they can risk pool all these regions and they can bargain better with the parametric insurance provider. However, there are challenges and opportunities also in the implementation of this alternative parametric insurance approach, right? So it is very important that when we talk about any insurance coverage, so those insurances should have to or they should be able to ensure widespread retail payment dissemination. So this widespread retail payment dissemination is not that easy, and in fact encouraging the households to pay the long-term premiums is also a challenge. We cannot ensure that households continue or regularly paying these premiums to the insurance company, and once during the settlement of these insurance claims, so we need to ensure a widespread retail payment dissemination also while paying insurance premiums and also during the settlements of the claims also. So that is the one of the challenge in the parametric insurance usage. Especially this can be a challenge in the poorer countries or countries with a poor population. So however, stories, especially the success stories from countries like New Zealand and Turkey, so it highlights the feasibility of implementing this parametric insurance method in earthquake prone regions across the world. So therefore lessons have to be learned, and whatever shortcomings and whatever challenges are there in the parametric insurance method, so those challenges and shortcomings must be overcome by a detailed framework along with the collaboration between different countries, right? So that's all about this insurance method. And next important article that we are going to discuss is about challenges in immunization coverage for children in India, right? So in India, immunization of children is very important because it protect children from various diseases, because newborn children may not have the immunity to fight with different disease causing pathogens. So therefore it is very important that the children must be adequately immunized in the first 5 years in general and first 2 years in particular, right? So however, there are a lot of challenges in the immunization coverage for children in India, and that is being evident from the data from World Health Organization and even the UNICEF also. So we will understand what are these challenges in the immunization coverage for children in India and what are the consequences, so how it leads to a greater problem in India. So a recent report by the World Health Organization and UNICEF has highlighted that there is significant concerns regarding India's overall immunization efforts. So there are a lot of concerns with respect to India's overall immunization efforts. In the year 2023, India was ranked least. So we can say India ranked second from the last globally, following Nigeria in the number of children who did not receive any vaccine. So we can say that from the beginning it is India's second rank, because a number of children who did not receive any vaccine or any immunization, so India ranks second. So no doubt India has one of the largest population in the world, and it is also important that the government should take up the responsibility of immunizing all the children at the appropriate age, right? So in India, maternal mortality rate and infant mortality rate is one of the prime concerns. So in order to address these concerns, we need to administer vaccines as early as possible to the children. So therefore India's poor vaccination and poor immunization coverage is evident from the fact that the World Health Organization has ranked India second next to Nigeria in the number of children who did not receive any vaccines. Okay, so yeah. Okay, sorry. Yes. Specifically in India, so it is recorded 1.6 million zero dose children, so that indicating those who missed out on all routine immunizations, right? So India recorded 1.6 million zero dose children, and that has been indicating those who missed out on all routine immunizations. So you can also go through all this data about India's immunization coverage and how many number of children are actually covered under the immunization through various immunization for various diseases. Now, key highlights of the report that are being published by the World Health Organization and UNICEF. So DPT vaccine coverage, right? So when we say DPT, so DPT essentially deals with three different disease vaccines. They are diphtheria, pertussis and tetanus vaccines, right? So they essentially deals with these three different vaccines. So there is a slight decline in the coverage for diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus vaccine. So from 95% in the year 2022 to 93% in 2023. So this has been indicating that there is a substantial decline in the number of children who are vaccinated in the year 2022 to who are vaccinated in the year 2023, and therefore it has been indicating that there is a rise in the zero dose children. So who are these zero dose children? So zero dose children are those children who did not receive any vaccination or any immunization. They are not covered under the any immunization, right? So a measles vaccine coverage. And in fact, India is also ranked third globally in the number of children who did not receive the measles vaccine. Okay, so all these numbers indicating that India's immunization programs are performing very poorly, and in fact 1.6 million children missing out on these essential immunizations. So we need to compare India's immunization with the neighboring countries, and when we make these comparisons, the neighboring countries such as Pakistan and Afghanistan are faring better than India. So these results are a bit surprising. The data is a bit surprising. But according to this particular report, Pakistan and Afghanistan and even neighboring countries of India, they showed a relatively lower number of unvaccinated children compared to India. So that is a bit surprising, because India, a country with a large scale vaccine manufacturing infrastructure, and in fact a large number of government programs which cover a number of children, still India lags behind. It is definitely surprising and shocking thing. So therefore it has been indicating that India's poor immunization coverage has been indicating varying immunization challenges across South Asia, particularly in India. So apart from that, you can also go through the immunization coverage in India. So how people are covered, children are covered with the immunization, right? So what are these zero dose children, right? We have discussed about this zero dose children. Now when we say zero dose children, so those children they have not received any routine immunization services by the government. So these children have not received any immunization services from the government, particularly the first dose of the DPT vaccine, diphtheria, pertussis and tetanus vaccine. So therefore this zero dose children metric actually helps identify the gaps, and it also provides an opportunity for the government to further improve the immunization coverage, and it would also guides the intervention strategies of the government. So that is the definition of zero dose children as per the World Health Organization. However, there are number of risk factors also, and access to immunization, there should be a proper framework, there should be a proper strategy to cover every children under the immunization programs. So that is one way through which we could reach out to every children. We could also protect them from the life threatening diseases. For example, children would get impacted with the diphtheria, pertussis, or it is also known as whooping cough, and tetanus, tuberculosis, polio, measles and hepatitis B. Right, so all these 7 diseases are covered under the Mission Indradhanush program of the Government of India. Mission Indradhanush program, it is an immunization program, and it covers 7 life-threatening diseases that children have been facing under this Mission Indradhanush, with an objective of fully immunizing children up to 2 years of age, and even pregnant women with the available vaccines at the government, right? So 7 colors of the rainbow, and immunity against 7 life-threatening childhood diseases that children would face. Okay, so children who are classified as a zero dose in India, that definition we have already understood this definition. Those children not received any routine immunization services are known as zero dose children. So they are primarily those children who missed the initial DPT vaccine dose and administered around 6 weeks after the birth. So this DPT vaccine must be administered 6 weeks after the birth. And in fact, so when we talk about the institutional deliveries in India, total institutional deliveries reach to around 90% or 88.6% of all births have been taking place in the health facilities. So that is known as institutional deliveries have substantially increased, and these institutional deliveries also increased access to BCG vaccine against the tuberculosis for most of the newborns. Now, when we talk about the immunization and increased coverage under the immunization, so awareness campaigns play a very important role. Now, India stands as a country which successfully eradicated polio. So, India eradicated polio, and this very same campaign should also be undertaken to immunize all children against all life-threatening diseases. Now, apart from immunization, workers like ASHA workers and ANMs and even Anganwadi workers at the rural level, so they can play a very important role in immunization of children, and these services should also be revamped. Okay, so revamping of these services in the immunization, the role of these different services in immunization should be rightly leveraged. And apart from that, so we need to select village as a unit or clusters for identifying the children and immunizing them. So all these things are very important to make sure that India immunizes all its children and there are no zero dose children left in India, right? So next important article is that Assam's 700-year-old moidams to be considered the World Heritage List. Now we will understand what exactly is this moidams and what is this World Heritage List and how any cultural site would be included in the World Heritage site. So the context is that a 700-year-old mound burial system of Ahom dynasty, so this is also known as the moidams of Assam. So this is a mound burial system. So it will be considered for the nomination in the World Heritage List next week in the 46th session of the World Heritage Committee. So this particular session of the World Heritage Committee, for the first time, it is being held in India. So in this World Heritage Committee session, so whether this mound burial system of Ahom dynasty should be included in the World Heritage List or not will be discussed, right? So if the nomination comes for this mound burial system in the World Heritage List, then it will become the first cultural site on the prestigious list from the northeastern region. Now in northeast, when we talk about the sites which are included in the World Heritage site, so there is a Kaziranga National Park and even the Manas National Park also, which are in the UNESCO's World Heritage List, but they are not cultural sites. Okay, so they are not cultural sites, they are environmental and ecological sites. However, if this mound burial system, if it is included in the UNESCO's World Heritage List, then it will become the first cultural site on the prestigious list from the northeastern region, right? So in fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to inaugurate the 46th session of the World Heritage Committee. So that is being held in India for the first time, right? So you have to remember this thing also. The 46th World Heritage Committee session will be held in New Delhi, especially in India, for the first time. And in fact, the nomination dossier for this moidams was already submitted a decade ago to the World Heritage Committee, and in fact it is presently in the tentative list of UNESCO World Heritage Site. And in fact, submitting a dossier and then a tentative list of these particular sites is considered as the first step towards the monument becoming a part of the final list. So you can also go through all the UNESCO World Heritage sites, so which are recognized in India, right? So you can see that there is no World Heritage site in Northeast except Manas Wildlife Sanctuary and Kaziranga National Parks in Assam. So this is a 700-year-old burial mound moidams in Assam. So apart from this, so we will briefly understand about this World Heritage Committee. What is this World Heritage Committee? So it is a committee of the United Nations educational, scientific and cultural organization. It is also known as UNESCO, right? So it is committee of the UNESCO. And this particular World Heritage Committee is responsible for the implementation of World Heritage Convention. There is a World Heritage Convention for the protection of and conservation of the World Heritage sites across the world. So for that particular purpose, there is a World Heritage Convention. So therefore, the World Heritage Committee is given the responsibility of implementing the World Heritage Convention, and in fact it defines the use of World Heritage Fund that is also established under this convention, and it also allocates financial assistance upon requests from the state parties. If any state requests UNESCO World Heritage Committee about the funding to protect and to conserve one particular World Heritage Site, so it would also allocate financial assistance to the state parties to protect and conserve World Heritage Sites. And in fact, the World Heritage Committee has the final say on whether any property should be inscribed as in the World Heritage List or not, right? So it would take the decision to include any site as any property as part of the World Heritage List. And in fact, it also examines reports on the state of conservation of inscribed properties, and it would also ask the state parties to take action when properties are not being properly managed. So there are instances in countries like Middle East and even Afghanistan. There are properties which are earlier recognized as part of the World Heritage Convention because of World Heritage List, because of a lot of a conflict, a civil war like situation and terrorism. So those properties are being damaged, and in fact World Heritage Committee also decides on the inscription and deletion of any properties from the World Heritage List which have been posing the danger or which are in danger. So these are the major objectives of the World Heritage Committee and its major functions. Now let's proceed on to another very important article, that is India-Japan collaboration for the carbon trading. Now what exactly is this carbon trading? Now we will understand the carbon trading. Right, so imagine that there are two industries. There is industry A and industry B. Okay, so yeah, so there are two industries, industry A and industry B. Now imagine that under the carbon trading, what generally happens is that industry A invested in technology, advanced technology, and this advanced technology has resulted in energy efficiency. Now it has been using less fossil fuels, or it has been emitting very less emissions, right? So it has less emissions. And on the other hand, apart from that, it has also been using renewable energies for its operation, right? So it has been using renewable energy for its operation. But on the other hand, the company B, the industry B, it's not yet used advanced technology to achieve energy efficiency. So therefore we can say that there's no technology on the part of industry B, and apart from that, it has been using the fossil fuels for its operations, right? So therefore imagine these two industries. So in order to incentivize industry A, which has invested in technology and which has also been using renewable energy that reduces the emission intensity of this particular industry. Now imagine that generally what happens, the government set the annual limit of emissions 10 tons for each industry, right? 10 tons for each industry. So industry A 10 tons annual emissions and 10 tons for industry B annual emissions. So since industry A invested in technology and that resulted in energy efficiency, and it has also been using renewable energy, so industry A is generating only 5 tons of carbon emissions per annum. So it has been producing only 5 tons of carbon emissions per annum. But on the other hand, so it has not invested in technology and it is also using fossil fuels heavily. So this industry B has been emitting 15 tons of greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. Now understand that the government has already set 10 tons limit of emissions, annual emission limit for both these industries. But on the other hand, industry A complied with this norms And in fact, industry A reduced the emissions by 5 tons, but on the other hand, industry B exceeded the emission targets. Now, the government gives an appreciation certificate to industry A. So that appreciation certificate is known as carbon credit, right? So that appreciation certificate is known as carbon credit. So industry A will get 5 carbon credits, right? So it will get 5 carbon credits because it reduced its emission intensity by 5 tons. Okay, so it only emitted 5 tons and thereby reducing its total emission to 5 more tons. So still 5 tons of leverage left for this industry A. So therefore government incentivized industry A by giving it a 5 carbon credits. But on the other hand, government would penalize the industry B because it has already exceeded the limit and emitted more, even 5 tons more. So therefore, in order to escape from the government penalties, industry B need to purchase these 5 carbon credits from the industry B because it has exceeded the limit by plus 5 tons. So therefore, industry B will purchase these 5 carbon credits from industry A, thereby it will benefit the industry A. Thereby it will benefit those industries which are invested in technology and which are invested in the renewable energy. And that is the carbon trading mechanism, and this mechanism is known as carbon trading mechanism, right? So this is India Japan collaboration for the carbon trading. Now India and Japan have been exploring a joint crediting mechanism under the Paris Agreement to enhance collaboration over the carbon trading. Right, so both countries wanted to extend collaboration over carbon trading. Now what is this carbon trading? Carbon trading is the process of either buying or selling permits. So we have understood there's an industry A and industry B, and how buying and selling of these carbon permits and credits takes place for their emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, right? So Article 6 of the Paris Agreement actually provides for the use of international carbon markets. So there are international carbon markets as well, right? So it is not just within one country, within one particular country, it is also between different countries. So therefore Article 6 of the Paris Agreement provides for the use of international carbon markets by countries to fulfill their nationally determined contribution. Now each country also has the nationally determined contributions. These are emission norms for those respective countries. So these markets would create incentives to reduce emissions. For example, emitter B, so in the earlier case industry A, which has reduced its emissions, so it is important to incentivize that particular industry by giving it carbon credits. So those carbon credits will be sold to the industry B because it has already exceeded its limit. So therefore all industries over a period of time would move to the energy efficiency, and this carbon credit mechanism will benefit the industries, and it will also reduces the emissions and encourages the transition into the green technologies. So what are the advantages of these carbon markets? We need to understand the advantages of these carbon markets. So first very important advantage is, without a doubt, it would promote the energy efficiency in the industries, right? So because it incentivizes the reduction in the energy use and usage of renewable energy, and because of that reason it promotes the energy uses, and apart from that it would also promote transition to the cleaner fuels. And in fact, companies can also choose between investing in emission reducing technologies, or even they can purchase allowances based on the cost effectiveness also. And it would further encourage innovation and adoption of low carbon technologies such as renewable energy technologies by the industries, due to the regulatory pressure and market incentives which are being offered to industries which have adopted the innovative and low carbon technologies. However, it is not free from the challenges. There are a number of challenges also. When we talk about the challenges, the first important challenge is, some entities may buy credits without actually reducing the emission for example, in earlier case, the example that industry B, so which has which has breached its target of 10 tons of emissions per annum, it has produced 15 tons. So therefore there are some entities, so they just buy the credits without actually reducing their emissions. So they go on increasing their emissions and they just buy these credits from the other industries. So therefore it would undermine the actual reduction of the greenhouse gases, and the actual effort would be undermined by this particular thing. And apart from that, the quality issues also there when we calculate the emission. Emission quality calculation is also very important, because many credits available may not meet the quality standard from the industries, because so these are lacking a verifiability, and there is no proper auditing, there is no permanence of these quality standards and emission reduction. So all these factors are posing new challenges in carbon markets or in carbon trading. And in fact, purchasing these credits by the industries, regularly purchasing these credits, and industries further exceeding their emission norms, so that would divert the attention from the genuine efforts to reduce the emissions directly. And apart from that, it is also challenging to accurately quantify the emission reductions which are achieved through offsetting projects such as afforestation and even the renewable energy initiatives. So there are a number of challenges when we talk about the carbon credits or carbon trading, and we need to look into all these challenges. For that to happen, whether there should be an overarching legislative framework at the national level, or there should be an international collaboration discussing these things with all the stakeholders, setting a proper standards and a proper framework is very important in this context, right? So that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. If you like our work, please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you.